Alright, let's just do a little vlog here. Stay engaged, the Vedic vlog. So, I started kind of, I'm reading all the Bhagavad Gita and these literatures, and, I've been chanting and doing all these things for about a year, and, going to the temple a few times, taking prasadam, trying to get sober, and clean up my act, and live a responsible life. In this human form, this body, this exalted intelligence, trying to discern myself from the cats and dogs, from simply being an expert in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and trying to utilize this body for self-realization, spiritual intelligence. So, there's been bumps along the road. I'm not perfect. I'm still highly conditioned. And I still make a lot of mistakes. There's the 4 conditions. As you make mistakes, your senses aren't perfect. You have the propensity to cheat. And the other one, I just can't, is not on the top of my head right now. But, invariably illusioned. So, I'm invariably illusioned quite a bit. So, sometimes I'm participating in these Facebook groups and things like that. And, putting quotes out there, pertaining to, trying to do some service, trying to drive people to Prabhupada's literature online, and try and keep myself engaged, because if I see these things and I share them and somebody comments on them or whatever, or it starts some talks, then I read it over and over again and I just really start to get the meanings. But, there's a fine line between preaching and evangelism and fanaticism and zealotry. And fanaticism and zealotry, as I understand, is basically being intolerant to other people and their views and their beliefs, and just being careful not to agitate the minds of others, because it says that in Bhagavad Gita. I think it's 18:15, or it might be 17:15 actually. Where you preach, it should be relishable to hear about the pastimes of the Lord and the self-realization and things like this, and just to do it mildly, unless they're your students, then you can tell them the more kind of disturbing, or, the more types of philosophy that might agitate the mind, or that is basically the opposite of materialism, because most people are materialists. They don't want to self-realize, and they're not so concerned about making spiritual progress and understanding the signs of the soul, or why they're put into this miserable condition of life, or the transmigration of the soul, or all these things. So I'm kind of pretty familiar with the philosophy, but I still have to be careful that I don't become a fanatic or a zealot, and start saying things that are agitating to people, and online it's more easier to do, because I'm joining I'm in some of these spiritual groups, and I'll make comments pertaining to philosophy, and somebody will disagree or whatever. They'll concoct or manufacture their opinion, as most people do, and I just say, look, man, like, that's empirical experience, meaning, you basically only know yourself to exist, and you disregard, all the forefathers' knowledge, and that brings me to another point. What is the point of civilization if people can't understand the concept of apprenticeship? This was one of the first things that the man told me, who I met, who turned me on to Krishna consciousness and Prabhupada's literatures, was this concept of apprenticeship. And he said, what is the point of civilization if, all this work from all these civilizations and these messages handed down before you, and you don't accept them, then how is your life successful? I guess if they're spending you an unbonafide message, but nowadays people just want to create, their own religions, and the new religion of today is irreligion, and real religion is deemed irreligion, you know, and religion is deemed irreligion. Something like that. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but that's another thing, you know, like if I'm not saying myself, pronouncing myself correctly, then, you know, who's to say of my preaching, you know? I don't want to be a fanatic or a zealot or turn more people's aversion and animosity towards God. Because then my knowledge is spoiled if I do that, and then you know, that's not a very good predicament for me. But then, you know, it starts to come. So I made this comment to somebody, you know, saying, you know, he attacked something that I said. You know, it didn't even have anything to do with him. You know, it was something about the soul and the body, and how the soul, the consciousness, is not, you know, different between different types of bodies. Consciousness is the same. And then I said, and the soul is not different from the body. Because if you think about it, well, the way I perceive it is that if the soul is not different from the body, because, you know, the soul is the spiritual touch that is moving this body. So, I mean, even though I'm not this material body, I am spirit soul, at the same time, it's still, you know, a complete unit in that sense, right? You know, like if my finger gets cut off, you know, the finger doesn't work anymore, you know? Well, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right either, but, you know, I'm still trying to figure out how to properly engage myself and represent the literature and the philosophy without being a fanatic or without being an agitator, as some of these evangelists I've seen on the internet lately. You know, because if you're just creating more hatred and animosity, then the knowledge is spoiled. But so another guy comes in who is obviously in the Krishna consciousness movement, or the Hare Krishna movement, because his name is, you know, he has a spiritual name, and he goes, this post, you know, what you're referencing to, the verse is talking about the material modes of nature, and how one is reacting to the material modes of nature, but that's not how it actually is. So I wrote him back and I said, well, you know, okay, well, please explain. I figured it out. Raja Gunas is the material modes of nature. But he said, that's not the way it actually is. And I was like, okay, well, particularly, please, you know, expound on that's not how it actually is, because I just don't understand that part. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I don't understand it. But then you know, and then after he said, and I said, what is the point of writing, If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. You know, don't write that nonsense, Like that, all that is doing is just trying to, like, some kind of egotistical, you know, comment before what you have to say to try and make yourself look bigger, or, you know, and just, you know, he's a god brother, I guess, because he's in the movement, and he's, you know, I looked at his profile, and he obviously has, you know, some long-standing history, but I mean, you know, I don't make comments like, you know, to like, you know, like, what is that? That's nonsense. So that's another part of this thing, you know, is people in this movement, you know, who don't know the philosophy, or taking it wrong. Maybe that's me, but you know, I'm definitely highly imperfect. But I mean, some of the other people in this movement, like, it hurts that I have to, like, you know, I don't want to associate with them because they just want to, you know, people get offended so easily these days, you know, even me sometimes, but not overly. And you know, so other people in the movement I just find particularly, you know, kind of agitating to my own spiritual progress, even though we're in this together. I mean, well, Prabhupada says a really great quote. It goes something like this. Whenever two men are in the same room, there's going to be some misunderstanding. and, and I found that a lot. And so I try not to add too many women, from the movement into my, or even just women in general, because I'm trying to move away from that. I'm trying to leave, at least come about a more just solitary or celibate type life, and not lusting and looking at pictures and of girls or whatever. I'm trying to move away from that. So, and then some of the attitudes, is I had to block this one Mataji lady from this one particular group because something about her just like disturbed me. And apparently, she had this group and she was blocking a whole bunch of people. So I asked her some straightforward questions like, how are you discerning, what type of people to block, from this group or delete from this group? I mean, what kind of criterion are you using? And she just, she wouldn't provide a reasonable answer. And I would always see her updating the group and doing all this, and it got just, I didn't want to see this woman's actions all the time. She wasn't even a friend of mine, but she was obviously kind of taking things, sure, she has her own discretion and things to run the group the way that she sees fit. But I mean, so maybe I shouldn't be in the group, but it's too bad because I really enjoyed being there. But I mean, I just couldn't take, so I ended up blocking her, and I just didn't want to, I couldn't stand seeing her updates all the time. So I think that once she saw that I blocked her, she blocked me and removed me from the group and won't let me back in the group. And probably fair, rightly so, if that's her position and her prerogative. I mean, if, her reasoning is probably sound too, because she can't, see what's going on there, and using her discrimination to, validate each post and make sure things are on topic. But she just went overboard with it. She was just too fanatical, so, I mean, that's my opinion. But, I'm sure she has a lot of service, a lot of years in history, so it could be part ignorance on my own end too. But this is, so it's been, that's been a trying part of this whole thing, is understanding other people's positions and trying to get along and just be, have meaningful engagement, even if we don't agree, to break things down in a way that's, more polite than that is more kind of belittling to one another, or, so it's kind of a, and then, there's this other site on, I watched this movie that kind of, paints Iskcon in a bad light, because of all the, previous humps and hurdles that any organization will go through. But I mean, some of the, they were doing this, I think some festival, Jamasti or Ratha Yatra, I'm not sure, but I mean, the thing was sense gratification. There's some lady at the front of a stage, they're all dancing to a techno song, and they're saying, "Where's the party tonight?" And I want you to sing, "Where's the party tonight?" and gyrate your hips like this. And it's like, Prabhupada would never sanction that type of activity, ever. So, I mean, how familiar are these people with the philosophy? And where's this organization going? And how, how much should I really engage in it, if people just don't follow the principles? I mean, I'm not perfect, but I know the difference between what is, not, what is and what isn't. But, I'm imperfect, I'm conditioned too, so I guess gotta improve my discrimination. So it's coming up on 15 minutes. So that's it. Leave me a like, leave me a subscribe. See, this channel is just for making spiritual progress and vlogging out my own progress. So see you later.